After this Week 14 performance from quarterback Mitchell Trubisky, it's officially time, Steelers Nation. The Steelers must start Mason Rudolph in Week 15 versus the Colts. And on today's show, I'm going to explain why in detail, why Rudolph, somebody that has been kind of castigated by this organization, was told that he was going to get a shot in 2022 to be the starter, performed extremely well in camp and in the preseason, and then was demoted to the number 3 quarterback ever since, why he should get a shot here to maybe provide the Steelers a little bit of football justice here against the Colts and provide a spark for this team as we head down the home stretch without Kenny Pickett in the lineup. Before we get into the details today, if you want Mason Rudolph, Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer here, to come and save Christmas for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fans, go ahead, click that thumbs up icon and like today's video. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people that want to see Rudolph get the start next Sunday. So first, I want to talk not about Mason Rudolph. We'll get to him in a second. I want to talk about why Mitchell Trubisky, the person that the Steelers paid $10 million this season to be the backup, shouldn't start. All right, so let's break down Trubisky's stats, man, and they're just ugly here in 2023, and there's no other way to put it. You look at his stats from this past week against the Patriots, his opportunity to show that he could be still a top-flight backup quarterback in this league, and he did not answer the call. I know it's a Belichick defense. I know that defense has been playing really good the last month, but this was like pulling teeth watching this offense with Mitch Trubisky throwing the football, man. 190 yards passing. He had a passing and a rushing touchdown and an interception, but it really could have easily been 3 interceptions, if we're being quite honest with you, and the rating at 74.7 does not do justice to just how bad Mitchell Trubisky was against the New England Patriots. Then this season, in 4 games played and in 1 start, it just hasn't been good for the backup quarterback here in Pittsburgh. The completion percentage is down to just 60%. You got the yards at 463, so averaging about 110 yards a game, something like that. Then we got 5.5 yards per attempt, not great whatsoever. That would be among the lowest in the National Football League, and he has 3 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and really you could add 2 to that total based on the ones that were taken away in yesterday's ball game. So I think what we learned against the Patriots this week is that this offense is not good enough with Mitchell Trubisky as the quarterback. And I'm not exactly sure that with Mason Rudolph, it's going to be any better, but I'm not sure if it can get worse than what it was with Mitchell Trubisky. This stuff is not working with Trubisky under center. We've seen that in 4 games this year with Trubisky in there. I think that it's time for a change. I really, really do. Trubisky just hasn't been that guy, and if the Steelers want to save any shot of saving their season at this point, I really don't think Mitchell Trubisky is going to be that guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, coming up here, I'm going to be talking about the recently signed practice squad quarterback, Trace McSorley, and why he shouldn't get a chance to prove himself here in the final weeks of the 2023 campaign. But before I get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. If you want to spice up your game days this NFL season, then PrizePicks is going to be perfect for you. It is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And you might be asking yourself, Jack, how does daily fantasy sports work? Well, here's how. You pick 2 to 6 players, if they'll go for more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can even win up to 25 times your money on any entry. And this weekend here, my PrizePicks projection here is I'm going to go with the more Brock Purdy passing yards, more for the Travis Kelce touchdowns. He always gets a touchdown, right? And then I'm going to get the more on Saquon Barkley touchdowns because he's on my fantasy team, and I need a win this week. All right, now you can get your picks in. If you know ball, you can make money with PrizePicks today. You can check it out now at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. With PrizePicks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right now. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for first deposit match up to $100 today. So we talked about why Mitch Trubisky should be benched, but what about Trace McSorley? He's a Penn State legend, somebody that provides a little bit of athleticism maybe, But honestly, guys, McSorley isn't a good option to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers either. And honestly, he might be even worse than Trubisky, which is saying something. So McSorley, throughout his career, 9 games played, you look at that completion percentage, that is dog water, man. 51.6 for an average of 5.4. That's close to what Mitch Trubisky is getting per attempt. Just so you guys know, it's actually lower than what Mitch has gotten for the Steelers this year, which is saying something. And then 5 interceptions to just 1 touchdown should tell you everything that you need to know about Trace McSorley. And then not only is his previous stats bad, okay, but also he's just picking up this offense. All right, Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph have had this playbook for a long time at this point. They've been with the organization for the last at least 2 years in Mitch's case, even longer for Mason. This guy just joined the team last week, all right? This week, if you want to call it this week, right? This is going to be going out on Saturday. So McSorley's not the answer, guys. He's just not. I know he's a Pennsylvania quarterback legend, former Nittany Lion. You know, I understand that a lot of Steelers fans out there might want to see him play in a Steelers uniform here, especially because they feel like the season's already over. But I'm telling you right now, if you want to win, Trace McSorley's probably not your option. All right, so coming up next, I'm going to tell you why Mason Rudolph is the best choice for the Pittsburgh Steelers to start for the rest of this season as long as Kenny Pickett is still on the injured list. But before we get into that, I want to hear from you guys who you think should get the start for the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 15 versus the Indianapolis Colts. Type MT if you think Mitchell Trubisky should get the start. Type MR if you think Mason Rudolph should get it. Or if you think Trace McSorley, put it on a dime, should get it. Type TM down there in the comment section. So I really do think that Mason Rudolph is probably the best, worst option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. Now, what does that mean? That means that I'm not sure any of these quarterbacks are starting capable players here in the National Football League at this point. So they're all bad options. But the question is, who's going to give you the best shot? And I think right now, I don't think it's any question it's Mason Rudolph. Because plain simply, when you look at the numbers right now, when they're in their time with the black and gold, Rudolph looks a little bit better. Now, Trubisky, throughout his time here, a little bit higher completion percentage, a little higher yards per attempt, with the touchdown percentage for Rudolph is way higher. He's got a lower interception percentage, even though it is actually pretty close here. And then the rating is, of course, higher than Trubisky. So, listen, based on the numbers of what they've done, in terms of when they've actually gotten on the field for the Steelers, it's pretty comparable. And based on what we saw from Mitch Trubisky on Thursday night, that's not going to cut it. That's not acceptable. So there's really no downside to going to Mason Rudolph because, they could absolutely suck with Rudolph at quarterback. But guess what? You're probably going to suck with Mitch Trubisky in there as well. So I think it's all about trying to find your best, worst option here. And for me right now, because we've already seen what Mitch Trubisky looks like in this offense, I think that you couldn't really get much worse if you put in Mason Rudolph, all right? And another thing to keep in mind here is that this Steelers locker room is looking for a spark. Their starting quarterback is out with an injury potentially for the rest of the season. Their offensive coordinator has been fired. They need a spark here. And if Mason Rudolph is the guy, somebody that was kind of slighted by this organization in the past, right? He was supposed to get a chance to start in 2022, had a really good training camp, really good preseason, and then he was demoted to the number 3 quarterback spot ever since. Now, like Mike Tomlin likes to say, football justice has a way of coming around here. And Mason Rudolph, if you start him, I think that these players that have been with him for a long time in this locker room would play their ass off for him. And that's what we need. That's the spark that the Steelers need moving forward. And it might even translate to a win against the Indianapolis Colts to save this Steelers team season. If you start Trubisky, I think it's going to be low energy. I feel like everybody's going to be down in the dumps. And I'm not sure if you have as good of a chance to win that football game as if you have Rudolph coming to save Christmas here in the Steel City. Now, before I go, I want to address this kind of rumor here because there's some people out there on Steelers Twitter saying, why not sign a new quarterback? Why not go to free agency and find somebody if none of these guys on the roster right now are good enough? And the answer to that question is that it's just too late in the season. I've seen guys like freaking Colin Kaepernick thrown around on Steelers Twitter right now. Get a fucking life if you think Colin Kaepernick is going to come back in the NFL at this point, man. But some other options that have been thrown around, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, and of course, the Big Ben Roethlisberger rumors were even flying earlier this week. So I really don't think that this is going to happen. I can understand why Steelers fans want to see Big Ben come back. He's somebody that actually knows the playbook, so he could maybe make a transition, but he hasn't really been working out. He hasn't thrown since he retired, and he really hasn't shown any sign that he wants to come back. So I really don't think the Big Ben thing is going to happen. And then for all these other quarterbacks that have maybe indicated that they would like to come back, like a Matt Ryan, they just don't know the offense, man. They'd have to learn a brand new offense here, a new terminology, all this different stuff, and then they'd have to be forced to go out there and play an NFL football game, and I just don't think it's feasible for any of these guys to be able to do it. So I think that right now your options are Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and then maybe Trace McSorley, but McSorley, in my opinion, is probably the last guy that you want starting for this team right now. At least that's just my opinion. But you guys know my opinion here on the Big Ben thing, but I want to hear from you guys. Could Big Ben come back to have success right now? So if he decided to come back, would he be the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers over Mitchell Trubisky, over Mason Rudolph, and over Trace McSorley? Would he be the best quarterback on the Steelers roster right now if he came back out of retirement? Type yes or type no. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me here to the end of today's show. I definitely think that Mason Rudolph needs to be the guy moving forward here for the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least until Kenny Pickett is able to come back from his ankle injury, provide a spark to this team, and maybe, just maybe, save this team's season. That'll be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button for more Steelers news and rumors content 24/7, 365 for free here on YouTube.